And the NLC has just released a statement on the outcome of the petroleum increase. Specifically, they've said the NLC would not want to continue to be a part of the usual charade of committees with outcomes that are never implemented. It says it would not want to waste the time of Nigerians, especially workers, on committees that have already been programmed to fail, thus ignored. They do not want to provide a cover for government to get away with the hardship it has imposed on the people. Well, we'll be looking at all of that, but again, we're meant to start off with Yakubu Suleiman, who's the PRO of Ipman. We do hope he makes it down to the studio so that we can continue that conversation. But by the way, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Company Limited, that's NNPCL, Mele Kyari, has been speaking on the recent change in the pump price of petrol, shedding light on the reasons behind the increase. In Nigeria's capital, Abuja, some petrol stations operated by NNPCL raised the price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, from 537 naira per litre to 617 naira per litre, leaving Nigerians surprised. Mr. Kyari, who spoke to journalists after a meeting with Vice President Kashim Shettima at the presidential villa, attributed the price hike to market forces, stating that it was not as a result of supply issues. Additionally, Farouk Ahmed, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, supported Kyari's explanation, citing the rise in crude prices as a contributing factor. Ahmed also mentioned changes in freight prices and other associated costs incurred by importers during the distribution process.
I don't have the details at this moment. We have marketing wing of our company. They adjust prices depending on the market realities. And this is really what it's about. This is the meaning of making sure that the market regulates itself, so that prices will go up and sometimes they will come down also. And this is really what we are seeing. In reality, this is how the market works. There's no supply issue completely. It is not a supply. When you go to the market, you buy the product, you come to the market and sell it at its ongoing, its prevailing market price. Nothing to do with supply. We don't have supply issues. There are a robust supply. We have over 32 days of supply in country.
As a regulator, I told you back in May that we are not going to be setting price. The market will determine itself. And as you saw back in early June, when prices came out, it was based on the cost of importation plus other logistics of distribution, and of course the profit margin by the importer. This market is deregulated. It's open to all participants. As I mentioned also yesterday when I was in Lagos, we had over 56 marketing companies that applied for and obtained licenses to import. Out of those, 10 of them have indicated to supply within the third quarter, which is July, August, September.
In the meantime, Nigerians are reacting to the hike in petrol prices. Well, joining me to speak more on this is Baba Yusuf, and he's a policy strategist and group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company. But quickly, before we come to you, Yusuf, let's hear what some Nigerians are saying.
The supervisor called us that they have a call from Lagos that the price have increased. You understand? Because he knows some of us, he said that if we can come and buy fuel before they change their price. And before 30 minutes after, most of us that has money went and buy, they have changed the price. You can see that there is queue in the filling station now. Nobody's smiling, everybody's angry. And there's no way we are getting this money back. It's transport we are doing. You understand? When you park to the bus stop and you tell somebody the real price you're supposed to pay, it will tell you that there is no money. You understand? Nobody's happy.
Well, that's exactly what we are seeing. This is how we wake up and we meet lofty lies turned to what they are supposed to be. After all, we sent the Labour Congress to go and negotiate, and they went there and started talking about 200,000 naira minimum wage to somebody who have not given you 30,000 naira minimum wage. Even when Charlie Boy keeps saying your mumu don't do, the man nodded his head and said, "Are you okay? We will look into it." Then they all backed away from the press. If they had stood their ground, all this will not happen now. More of this may happen again. Did we vote for marketers? Did we vote for marketers? Why don't they do their own work before they break? How do they even arrive at these prices? Did they call anybody to a round table this thing before they increase it to from 190 something to 500 and something? Or how do they do these calculations again? Where is the government that said we voted for them?
The price increase this time around is the killing one. This is the height of it. Because when President Tinubu entered on 29th May, that he made the announcement that they are removing subsidy, the fuel skyrocketed to 540 naira, 537 naira. So we are expecting, according to them, they say when they remove the subsidy, then the independent marketers can go into the business. Then the thing will start dropping. That is what we are expecting. We are expecting a drop from the hike of the price. Now it's another increment to 617 naira. So I want to ask the question, which way is Nigeria going? Are we going to continue like this? I heard them, because I used to watch news very well. I heard them on the telly saying that they want to give 8,000 naira palliative to poor families. I want to know, what can 8,000 naira do for a poor family in this country?
There's no gainsaying that this is the reality in Nigeria today, more so with the removal of fuel subsidy. But the issue is, as a people, this is a country that's endowed and blessed with the crude oil. For me, as an engineer, a metallurgical materials engineer, there is no reason. I've said it severally. There is no reason why a liter of oil in Nigeria should be more than 20 naira. There is no reason. But we are here because we have failed as a people. We have failed as a government to do the needful. What is the needful? We need to set up our infrastructures all over. The refineries, we have crude oil. Nigerians are suffering.
Well, Nigerians, they're expressing how they feel about waking up to a hike in the price of petrol. Well, joining me now is Yakubu Suleiman. He's the Public Relations Officer of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. And also, I have the Policy Strategist, Group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, Yusuf. Gentlemen, good to see you both. One of the key questions, I don't know if you've seen the statement from NNPC, but many people are asking, let's start with you, Yakubu Suleiman. People are asking what exactly is happening? What's going on in the sector?
Well, good evening, Nigerians. What's happening is market to determine the price by the deregulation, and we have to celebrate out of monopoly of government. So definitely the market forces will determine prices. That is what we find ourselves now, and as we can see, the crude oil, they had the crude oil price, they had the local market will be determined, and crude oil has now reached all about $80 per barrel. So that was what prompted all this debate. But I want to assure Nigerians, with this inflow of importation from our marketers, and I believe within the next end of the month and next month, another vessels are on the way coming. Then we pray the crude oil will come down a little bit. Definitely the price of petroleum product in the country will come down too. And we have to understand that because of this Ukraine-Russian war, yes, of course, we have to continue praying. Let there be sanity within there. Most of us are aware that the Black Sea, where is a normal route for the vessels coming, there is a red flag there. So most of the vessels that can change another route to Nigeria is a longer journey. They cannot do that longer journey freely. They must charge. So and a marketer must have to remove that transportation cost. So that's the variables, and I believe in the next 1 or 2 months, Nigeria will buy petroleum product, by the grace of God, below what we are seeing now.
Well, let me bring in Baba Yusuf. Listening to Yakubu Suleiman, it looks like deja vu. That was what we were told when the first, subsidy was taken off May 29. Instead, what Nigerians woke up to find today was a shocking increase.
Suleiman, it's a reality we have to face. To my mind, actually, when the president declared that subsidy was removed, some of us, the conversation is how do we face this new reality? Nigerians have to face this new reality. But like I said, and I'll continue to reiterate, the change in Nigeria always comes and then the brunt is borne by the citizenry without, commensurate, impact on the political class or on the ruling class. And I think that is the issue. One of the key things to note here is there is a consensus that subsidy should be removed. And Mr. President, I believe, appreciates that. Now, the reflection of that appreciation by the political class should reflect in the next line of actions. We are yet to see clear pathways to provide succor, or what I call shock absorbers, for the citizenry while this reality is being absorbed. We are basically living, metaphorically speaking, having an open heart surgery without anesthesia. And we are told to deal with it. And that is the key issue of concern for me. Now, while last week we heard from the special advisor to Mr. President, Mr. Dele Alake, coming out with some clear action points, which includes the palliatives and some critical steps to be taken to provide interventions, which to my mind are more or less mid to long term. The only key short-term action is the 500 billion, naira palliative, which to my mind leaves much to be desired. Less than 10% of the over 133 million multidimensionally poor Nigerians. And while I heard you reeling out, the snippets of the release by the Nigerian Labour Congress, but like I keep on saying, we hear a loud silence with regards to a critical chunk of populace. First of all, the 133 million multidimensionally poor they don't have the safety net of the NLC or the organized labor. And then we have about 80% Nigerians that, according to IMF, operate in the informal sector. This is the sector that drives the economy, Suleiman. And we have not heard any clarity with regards to the shock absorbers that will be provided by the citizens that are ready to support this critical game changer. Albeit, what are the painkillers? What are the succor for Nigerians? Another angle is to see clearly by the handlers of Mr. President. A couple of weeks ago, I saw one particular person that is in the key cabinet of Mr. President. And I did not see the empathy when the conversations was going on about, oil subsidy. We want to see the level of seriousness with which the administration takes the oil subsidy with regards to facing the people. And that is very key. So I expect that Mr. President is an empathetic president. We will need to see that reflecting in the people around Mr. President so that they don't send the wrong message to people with regards to how Mr. President sees this, that we are taking for granted. So that is where I will stop for now, but it is not a very good news we have gotten today.
Certainly not. Let me bring in Yakubu Suleiman again. Some people have been asking the question, well, we talk about market forces and we heard from NNPC. It doesn't look as if we have more importers at the moment. It looks as if NNPC is still very much in charge of importation of petroleum products.
Yes, because, initially, before, it was only the NNPC that are the sole importer of petroleum product. That was before the regulation, actual regulation. But when Mr. President had made a clear statement that subsidy has been removed. That's the regulation have started. So the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority has brought us some regulations that the criteria, if you are okay with it, they will give you licenses to go and start importing. Luckily enough, some marketers among us, came out, applied, and fulfilled the criteria, and they went ahead and brought their cargoes. Of recent, Shafar and other marketers their cargoes have already arrived and even discharged. Another cargo is coming tomorrow, is expecting to arrive in Nigeria tomorrow too. And, so I believe in the coming weeks, because the most important thing is supply, one. But at the moment, we don't have any problem with supply. Product is there. It's just the market forces, that is disturbing. And like my colleague have stated, that we just praying to government to make sure that those that will handle the palliative, I hope they are of proven integrity, and they have the masses at heart that can, let's see what will reflect to the poor people of Nigeria. And probably the most important thing at the moment Nigerians needed is social services. When we have the social services, because when you, like there's an ad that says, for you to go and catch a fish, fry it and give me to eat. It's better than to show me the way to go and do it. So by saying, I don't know how they arrive it, that they'll be giving Nigerians, even 12 million Nigerians, but we are having about 200 plus population, 8,000 per month. It's not encouraging. For me, that's my view. But what I think government should have done, or rather plan now at the moment, let there be social services. Yes, of course, electricity, hospitals, schools, and improve the roads that they are working on. Then, alongside some other facilities, they think it can work, but 8,000 naira per month at this critical time cannot be enough for poor Nigerian.
Let me come back to you, Baba Yusuf. And, this is one aspect that will beam such light on NNPC. Listening to Yakubu Suleiman, he said the former DPR, now NMDPR, has asked those who are interested to come and get their licenses for importation. But again, it still looks as if that sector or that market is still not that opened. Largely so that we can have more players. But shouldn't also we be speaking of fixing the refineries? Because for NNPC speaking of, or NNPC being in the business of importation of petrol, says one thing, a failure on its part to manage its own refineries and refine crude for us here in the country.
Suleiman,
we mustn't run away from that argument, must we?
No, we shouldn't. It's a reflection of the malaise in the country. But indeed, Suleiman, if NNPC has been presiding over the affairs of managing our refineries for almost 40 years, and we have serial failure in turnaround maintenance, we just hear the time money is appropriated, budgeted, and disbursed. Procurement process is initiated, but it never gets done, and there are no consequences for that, and there is no feedback with that regard. So obviously NNPC has failed woefully. The regulation that has taken place, I want to see how the NNPC now, that is a going concern, private sector driven, to take the initiative to deal with this issue of maintaining the refinery. But Suleiman, that will be a reflection of the political will of the president. We have a new president in place. We want to see how he will be front-facing with regards to that. Either to allow NNPC to now put the feet down and give them marching order to do that, or let us have people of proven integrity, capacity, and competence, and the cash to come in, maintain this, and we have an arrangement. But we must have refineries that call. It's an anomaly that one of the biggest producers of crude in the world is in the business of importation, as if that is the only way. It doesn't even, make sense, for secondary school students to get a grip of how are we. Now you hear the GMD NNPC speaking as if he's working with the Ip Man. There is no critical thinking, with due respect, reflected in all the new NNPC. We want to see a new NNPC that will be game-changing because we have a new president. But like I said, it will depend on the political will of Mr. President.
Well, NNPC shouldn't be speaking when you have Yakubu Suleiman to speak for Ip Man. And of course, this is the time for us to bring in the chairman of the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, Adeosun, who is, I think the acronym is MORMAN. Good to see you, and thanks for your time. Thank you for making it to Arise Prime Time. Quickly, for MORMAN, and if that's for your members, perhaps give us a sense of what's happening in the sector.
Good evening, Suleiman. Thank you very much for the invitation. Sorry I couldn't join earlier. It took a lot to get me into your studios today. The situation in the industry is obviously one that is one that's rather worrying from an average Nigerian point of view. Now, what I can speak to really is to start to maybe describe an evolution of how we got to where we are today in terms of pricing. If we look at what has happened in the market, I think the frustration that we're feeling with Nigerians today, and it is warranted, is where there has been a mismatch between expectations and reality. When the president said on the 29th of the month of May that subsidy was gone, I think we all welcomed it as a bold move, and quite frankly, as an association, we still believe it's the only course of action. We had nowhere else to go. Where we are in terms of pricing is that so if we look at the history of pricing, just in the interest of transparency, because I think it's absolutely critical that we are transparent with Nigerians. The biggest change that has happened since the 26th of May and the 14th of July in terms of pricing, and there are two price determinants that I'll speak to. The first is the Platts price of PMS, and the second is FX. If we look at what happened on the 29th, Platts closed at about $859 per ton. Again, in the interest of transparency, there's about 1,341 liters in a ton, and we can therefore work from $1 per ton into a naira per liter position. On the 14th of July, which is last Friday, the Platts closed at $853 or thereabouts dollars per ton. Now, that as you can see, that's pretty much a flat movement. Nothing much has changed there. So in the international price, nothing much changed. But if we look at the FX story, it's completely different, and it has been quite dramatic in terms of the shift. We had the FX rate, dollar to naira, at $1 equals 6.50 or thereabouts. Today, it's trading at $1 to about 830, 835. I've just been quoted 835 this evening. So a very big shift, about almost a $200 naira shift in that pricing. So if we then try to figure out what happens with pricing, because we can sense that people's frustration is born out of the fact that we've had two, what I can best call seismic price increases or price jumps in the last 2 months. We had the jump from 185 to 488, then we had 488 to 568. We, as an association, and I am also CEO of Adova PLC, we sat down, not together, but we sat down to try to analyze it both at an industry level and at a company level, to try to figure out how NNPC got their price. We don't share price information, so purely everything I talk about is purely speculative at this point. We can only infer what was done by looking at the numbers in a forensic way. So what we think happened is that a number of about 625 was probably applied into the pricing that got us to about maybe about that 488 number. It should have been higher, but I think there was again, I can only speculate that the interest was in keeping the price lower rather than the higher end of the band that it could have occupied. When we look at this new jump, it's about 100 naira jump. And what we've seen happen is that NNPC has maybe done about an 80 naira increase on there. So again, there is, so yes, under recovery was going on, but it's still obvious that there is some reservations there. Now it's cold comfort, right, to the average Nigerian who's having to cope with the first jump and then cope with the second jump. But the reality of the matter is that as a country we have had a congenital issue, which is the same as a high blood pressure, which is genetic. So we may not have had anything to do with, most of us may not have had anything to do with what's happening today, but we're dealing with the consequences of what's happening today. So, I mean, where we are really as an industry, and I imagine every company must have gone through what we at Adova went through this morning, which was to take the pricing, every element of the pricing one by one, the FX component, the Platts component, the freight component, all the variables that we're aware of, to see how we could really shrink the price, because the business we're in the business of selling fuel to Nigerians so that they can go about their day-to-day business. If the petrol price lands too high, then it's not in our interest, because there will be a suppression of customers at the stations, and that's really not something that we want. A lot of us are high volume companies, and we look to trade high volumes. You trade high volumes when you give your sharpest or your best price. So really, that's kind of where we are today.
I see the point. Well, let's see if we can just do 2 minutes, round. We're trying to manage time now, but this is very important. Listening to you, 3 key things here you've raised: the Platt price, the forex price, and the freight, which Yakubu Suleiman of Ipman had also spoken about. Let me come back to Yakubu Suleiman right here, so that he can stretch it for us. Now, listening to Adeosun, he says it is also affecting business for petroleum marketers. Yeah. Now, how is this going in terms of patronage? Are you getting to see more Nigerians buy petrol in the last hours till this moment? Or, I'm trying to draw a comparison to the former price and to what is happening now. How is patronage like?
Well, patronage, we just have to thank God, because even at the last price, to close of this one that comes in just today, we have lost a lot of patronage. Not only us as independent petroleum marketers, even the moment too. They know there are various filling stations, like, we have lost a lot of patronage because it's not everybody that can afford to even fill his tank as usual. Not everybody. You find out now in a filling station, somebody who you think he can come in with his car, thinking he's too big, that he can be able to fill his tank and go. But you find him buying a petroleum of 10,000 naira or 5,000 naira and drive his car out. The market has already been down. We are not happy too. We have to manage the reality on ground and continue praying. We believe you have had him. You're talking about the dollar component issue, the transportation. It's important that I'm calling on government and the Nigerians and NPCL to at least, have a synergy. We're having a good synergy with them, the Ipman, MOMAN, DAPMAN, with the NNPC. But at the same time, let there be an enlightenment committee with government agencies, so that we'll be able to enable us to enlighten the general public on the situation we are. And at the same time, Ipman will say, okay, fine, we are in this mess. How do we come out of it? Okay, we decided to bring an alternative from petroleum, that's CNG. We're trying on it. We have a company, NIPCO PLC. We have the CNG company. We are the first to do it in Nigeria, in Benin. So we say, okay, fine. Now we want to expand it to the whole country.
Let's break that down. You're talking about the compressed
natural gas. Yes, so that people can have an alternative in each filling station. Just last week, we had our CWC meeting with some of our core investors. We sat down with them, and we're trying to evolve there so that every filling station must have a CNG stations.
I'm afraid I need to come back to Baba Yusuf so that we can wrap up with Adeosun. Now he's brought up CNG. That's an alternative. What more do you think the country can start looking into that would mean better living and patronage for Nigerians across all sectors?
Well, alternative energy like the solar, apart from the CNG, I totally agree with regards to the CNG. There has been some lag time with regards to activating that critical alternative. We look forward to this government fast-tracking that process. And of course, the other options that Nigerians have been creative about with the solar and other, alternatives. But importantly, Suleiman, permit me to be more focused on the issue on the ground, and that is how to manage this crisis on the generality of Nigerians. I urge Mr. President, and the buck stops at his table, let us have a clear communication strategy. You hear the Moman and the Ipman gentlemen talking about critical issues that Nigerians need to hear. I've said it before that I expected a crisis center, particularly for this fuel subsidy, where in the next 6 months we will be having constant engagement with Nigerians to know what is going on and to hear that sympathy in the voice of the people and the leaders. We just had National Assembly disbursing 70 billion, for themselves. That does not go down well with the citizenry and such actions. Sure. We also want to see leadership from the front, the executive and the legislature, taking actions so that Nigerians can easily blend in and say, yes, we are in this together and hope is coming soon.
Okay, let's wrap up with Adeosun quickly here. Do you envisage or do you see a reduction or a stabilization anytime soon?
Yes, I see a stabilization. There has to be, as with anything, whether it's technology, policy, anything that's new goes through a cycle, and we're right now at the peak of high expectations, and then it's going to sail off. But let me say that stabilization is actually not going to come in one format. It's going to come in many formats. I've heard the other gentleman talk about other forms. What we're now seeing is because this government has been able to open up the market in a really meaningful way, removing subsidy, which has been a burden, it's created several opportunities. One, it's created the opportunity in terms of just leadership, and I mean societal leadership. Everybody has a role to play in terms of getting things done, from the federal government to the state governments who have to provide transportation and make sure that there's intra-city transportation, to local government authorities who have to create environments for people to actually be able to get around without any additional problems, to families, households, father, mother, child, daughter, who really probably need to start looking at some things, a lot of the things that we used to do that we've forgotten about, keeping allotments, growing food. The answer is not just in oil. At an industry level, we're seeing competition across the board. From being a fuel-dependent economy, people now have the options to drive electric vehicles. They have at least 3 or 4 different flavors of gas to use. They can use autogas LPG, autogas CNG, which has been talked about. They can use autogas LNG. These are all things that we have in Nigeria. So I think there are opportunities down the line, and the phase we're going through now is really just that very difficult bit where we're waiting for things to stabilize. But I think that the policy is exactly the right one. We had no choice but to do it at this particular point in time. And actually the right time to do it was about 10 years ago.
It's a fine place, apologies for butting in, it's a fine place for us to say many thanks for being such nice company. Adeosun, Yakubu Suleiman, and of course Baba Yusuf.